We're going to get a bit more analysis now with our international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert. Doug, this truce now is meant to go through tomorrow, Wednesday.
Yeah.
What happens when it's over?
Well, so far we don't know, exactly when it's going to end, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen when it's over. Those disclaimers out of the way. It's safe to say most of the Gazans are absolutely desperate to see this truce extended for obvious reasons. They have gotten an extremely brief breathing space, a respite, if you will, from what has been 7+ weeks of intensive bombardment that has left many of their neighborhoods absolutely destroyed, in ruins, sent hundreds of thousands evacuating from their homes to other areas of this very narrow coastal strip where they're still far from safe and dreading, what comes next. And during these days, right, they have gotten what? They've been able to sleep at night. They've been able, some of them, to at least pick up some things from their homes, assuming that their homes were still standing. And they were able to not get a sense of normality. Their lives were far from normal before October 7th, and they were far from normal afterwards. So, but a sense that they were able to breathe a little bit. So it is clear from the civilian standpoint, they absolutely want this extended as long as it can be. From the Israeli standpoint, there are divisions, obviously, fierce divisions within the government, obviously. Those who want to, as long as hostages keep getting released, to see the truce extended. But also those in the military and elsewhere, also among the far-right ministers who were never in favor of this truce and have always believed that every day of the truce gives Hamas more time to regroup and to rest up and get ready for the next phase here. So what comes next? Well, we know from the Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, that what comes next is, as he said, when the fighting ultimately resumes, as is expected to, and Israel resumes its military drive, it's going to be more intense, more powerful, as the Israeli defense minister puts it, which obviously is going to come as very grim news to the hundreds of thousands, millions actually, of Gazans now crammed into the south of this strip, having evacuated from the north, and not knowing where the next missiles, where the next bombardments are going to come right now. So we right now have the U.S. warning officially, Israel, or issuing them, asking them to tailor their military drives, to limit the displacement of civilians, which is really just an easy way, a diplomatic way of saying, don't hit civilians. Make sure that you have pinpoint military targets if you are going to resume this military offensive at all, and avoid what came before in the earlier phases of this war.
Doug, what about from an international standpoint? This has been a chance for Joe Biden, for the U.S. to perhaps get a little bit of thinking time for these few days, but his headaches look set to begin again once the truce is off.
Yeah, well, let's be clear. The headaches have never ended for Joe Biden, right? And this has only been a respite for him, a respite during which, yes, hostages and prisoner exchanges, aid getting into Gaza. He's been able to sort of hold that up, showcase that as proof of what he credits with successful and intensive U.S. diplomacy, obviously in concert with Egypt and Qatar. However, yes, you're right. His headaches are going to begin again because when and if, as seems likely, the fighting is going to resume and the Israeli military campaign gets underway again, you're going to have a president who was under fierce criticism before for being seen as going too lightly, having too light a hand with Israel, not coming down hard in his warnings and criticism of Israel and putting too much full-throated support behind Israel. He did say that when asked about conditionality going ahead of U.S. support for Israel, he said it's a worthwhile thought. The Biden administration hasn't changed its stance. It is still officially fully behind what Israel, as it sees, has to do to legitimately defend itself. However, young voters, Muslim American voters, more progressive voters, the left of his party, within his own administration, the ranks of everyone, it is very much divided right now, and there's a lot of criticism of Biden. He's going to be under a lot of pressure to make this idea of conditionality going forward. That is warning the Israelis, if you do this, we might do this in response. That is going to become more and more, I think, of a prominent idea going forward. That said, I just underlined, Biden administration remains what it's been in the early phases of the war, even technically now coming out of this truce. But the pressure will be on Joe Biden right now, perhaps to modify his tone, modify the way the U.S. administration reacts to what may coming up in the Israeli military campaign.